Just who is James Bo Greitz? Those wishing the definitive account of his life might want to read his autobiography called To Serve. Bo's life can be summarized in 4 words: courage, honor, loyalty, and dedication. Though he is America's most decorated Green Beret commander with 62 citations for valor, he is best known for his unceasing efforts at finding and returning the prisoners of war left behind in Southeast Asia. First officially, then unofficially, he has searched for his missing brothers. The Colonel comments on the situation in the following segments from an interview broadcast in the mid-'80s.
I was chosen to do it.
Chosen by whom?
Well, by interest in the government. I think that's kind of an old story now. My point is that I don't hang around the State Department. I don't find the State Department hanging around Southeast Asia. If it weren't for a great humanitarian reason, I would have long ago put this down. The fact is that Americans are there. I have tunnel vision on it. I have a lot of information about it, and I intend to pursue it until we have the living proof here so that there can be no doubt. Hopefully then the government will accept total responsibility and get the rest of them home.
Why doesn't the State Department do it themselves?
Well, probably Congressman Doran could answer that better than I, but I can see economic reasons. I can see an outrage in America in paying ransom, $3.25 billion to the communists. I can see that if we were to pay that ransom, that it would provide the communists with a wherewithal that they might even be able to continue the domino theory coming across the river into Thailand and on down through the other countries.
Now, if in fact you listen to Bo Greitz, who says he knows 2 Americans, why don't you leave the studio and take him up to the hill and get a group of people saying we've got to do something about this?
He is anathema.
Rather than leaving it to him, calling on spiritual help from the American people.
Well, he's anathema at the Pentagon now. I've been told to avoid him. I don't avoid any Vietnam
Why have
heroes.
you been told to avoid him?
Because he has operated independently, and they act at the Pentagon like we've got another 12 years
Not a good
to
soldier.
solve this. And I think he is a good soldier, and I don't avoid any
No, I
Vietnam
mean,
heroes.
he's not a
Well, that he
good
won't,
soldier
that
in
he
a
won't
sense
shut up,
following
go
tradition.
away, go get a job somewhere, and wait another 12 years. I've run out of patience, too.
So what do you say? This Time magazine, 1984, said Greitz is either a genuine American hero with the courage of his convictions or a publicity-seeking egomaniac who is not dealing with a full deck.
Well, Albert Einstein said that time was for people that couldn't think. I don't know how other than that to respond to time. I'm bulletproof when it comes to critics, because I wouldn't be doing this. I would have quit long ago. I don't have a job other than finding prisoners of war. I don't make any money off of it. My family, if it were not for a great humanitarian reason, would have probably left me. But they sustain me because they understand. And it hasn't been all outside the government. Every one of the cases, except this last one, I've been in lockstep, and I'll stand by to give Congress their report on...
See,
I'm out of time.
I know the government sucked him in, then they cut his legs
All
off.
right. Come back. We'll keep up with what you're doing. Robert Doran, thank you very much.
Undaunted, Bo continued his unofficial efforts to locate and rescue American prisoners of war. The trail led to a drug lord, and the results were shocking, as Bo explains in this segment from the Mort Downey Show.
That when you brought up the fact that you were going in to see General Kun Sa, and that he indeed had been shipping and is shipping 1,200 tons of heroin every year into the United States of America, and we had an opportunity to make a deal, we turned it down. Is that right?
That's exactly it, Mort. It was most disturbing to me because we didn't go to see Kun Sa about drugs. We went in cooperation with the White House. Tom Harvey, a would-be Ollie North lookalike, was the NSC staffer that asked us to go. It was to find prisoners of war that reportedly Kun Sa was holding. When we got there, we found out that he had no prisoners, but we couldn't leave without asking him why he insisted on shipping this poison into the world. And Kun Sa said that the U.S. had been his best customer for more than 20 years. Well, I didn't believe it. This was December of 1986. He said that he was willing to stop 900 tons in 1987, and then he said, I will disclose every U.S. government official that I have dealt with in the last 20 years. We brought those videotapes back and gave them to the White House. And 4 days later, we got that response. Tom Harvey called and said, Bo, it's fantastic. You guys are the first Americans ever to go in and come out alive. And I said, Tom, what about the deal to stop 900 tons? That's fantastic. And he said, Bo, there's no interest here in doing that.
I don't understand this, Colonel, all right? Here's what I don't understand. Why would this general volunteer to stop sending 900 tons of heroin? He must be making a hell of a lot of money from it.
Kunsa has 8 million Shan people in an area about 1/3 the landmass of Burma that he's taking care of. The only crop that he is allowed to grow is poppies refined into opium, morphine, and heroin. He wants to legitimize the economy of that Shan land so he can become a true nation state, and he knows he can't do it if they're dependent on drugs.
What was his deal that he offered?
He offered a deal to stop every ounce of heroin, 900 tons last year, 1,200 tons this year, and divulge U.S. government officials if Reagan would agree to give him a trade mission to the free world where he could start using some of the resources they have there to make other money, if we would send over Peace Corps operators, if we would do just a number of little things to get him economically off of dope and onto a legitimate economy. Seemed to me like a good deal.
So here's the thing that I think is important.
He also offered to give this last March 15th 1 ton of refined heroin to Vice President Bush as a show of his good faith. And you know what the State Department said?
Well,
we're not interested.
I would imagine they'd say that right about now Bush could use it. Colonel, were you ever able to ascertain any of the names of the officials?
You betcha. And what happened is I've got a letter here that Kunsa wrote to the Justice Department on the 28th of June, 1987. And if I can read just 2 sentences real quick. It says, during the period 1965 to 75, CIA chief in Laos, Theodore Shackley, was in the drug business. Santo Traficante acted as his buying and transporting agent, while Richard Armitage handled the financial section with the banks in Australia. And he goes on. Now, Armitage, as we speak, is the Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs under Carlucci, who was a Deputy Director of CIA, and of course Bush was Director of CIA.
Are we going to make American as cocaine and cocaine as American apple pie is, my friends? You're going to find out next. The Colonel will remain with us. We're going to dig deeper tonight. Stand by.
Despite attempts by the U.S. government to silence him, Bo continues his quest to bring our missing prisoners of war home. As you will see in the following segment from A Current Affair, broadcast in May of 1992, he remains at the forefront of this effort. As you will see a little later, he's expanded his quest to include the restoration of constitutional government to America.
Each year at this time, our nation pays tribute to the generations of servicemen and women who died fighting for the flag they loved. For one American family, this Memorial Day will be like no other because they have just been given some incredible news about a hero they thought perished in the jungle of a far-off land. He'd always been listed killed in action. Now, as Steve Dunleavy tells us, another war veteran has reclassified him as missing, presumed alive.
Fighting soldiers from the sky.
Yes, there are prisoners of war alive.
Fearless men who jump and die.
I got an eyewitness account of my father being alive.
Men who mean just what they say.
Bring him home now! Bring him home now!
The brave men of the Green Beret.
We will bring them home. God bless you.
If guts were made of gold, then this man would be a billionaire. His name is Bo Gritz, a warrior who fought the good fight. And long after a war called Vietnam was over, this warrior still fights the good fight.
We intend to bring back living prisoners of war, so we don't have to talk about it anymore. If it's true, we'll know it very soon.
And there are many who say that Bo knows. The much decorated Green Beret who quit the military to go back into the jungles of Southeast Asia to find prisoners of war is now fighting even a harder war to win.
Because I was chosen to go in search of my brothers, and I found them there, and I haven't been able to bring them home yet, I am not going to quit.
And one of his brothers is this man, Albro Lundy, an Air Force pilot shot down only 12 days before he was to come home to his family and only son.
I've been behind communist lines 10 times since 1983, 6 times setting up these operations, 4 times actually executing them. And in every case, at the last moment, when we should have had our arms around our brothers, something has always happened.
This T-shirt is a photograph of 3 live POWs.
His name is Albro Lundy III, a California lawyer. He doesn't remember his father. Up until now, the only time the ghost of his heroic dad appeared to him was when he passed this wall, the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C.
The government told me for 20 years that he was dead. And I believed the government. They said there were people that saw him die, and we said fine. And we never investigated it.
But this photograph could be haunting evidence that Albro Lundy's father is not only still alive with many of his comrades, but still a prisoner of a war that ended 17 years ago.
That is my father. That's him in the photograph. And so I knew it was real. That's when I said I have to tell my mother. So I gave her the photograph, and she said, Albro, leave the room. And my wife and I went in the other room, and we sat down to pray. And less than 2 minutes later, my mom calls me back in, and she says, well, that's your father.
In brutal terms, hope always reigns eternal when people do not see the coffins of their loved ones. They wish to believe in miracles. But this man, Tim Wilson, has put it in cold scientific terms.
The point is that we have a person here who absolutely is Albro Lundy's father in this photograph. So therefore, how could he have died in the airplane crash?
And that's what Albro Lundy wanted to find out when he brought his father's picture to Wilson, a forensic scientist.
What we're going to do is we're going to dynamically overlay the picture of Mr. Lundy in the MIA photograph with the picture of Mr. Lundy in the fishing camp. Now what we're doing is we're going in and we're going to absolutely measure all of the features in the individual. And as you can see, I'm getting the information out of all these dots of information, even the curvature of the nose, the bridge of the nose, the distance between the pupils, the distance between the teeth, the nose to the chin, the eyes to the nose. All of these dimensions empirically match up that these individuals are in fact the same. It is Mr. Lundy in both cases, yes.
The picture was smuggled out of Vietnam and was reportedly taken 3 years ago. But why would the Vietnamese keep the prisoners? Lundy believes the Viets are holding them as a bargaining chip to get U.S. aid.
If the U.S. find that they kept prisoners of war after the war ended and killed them, I mean, I don't think the American people will ever forget Vietnam. But if they release them, all the family members and the American people will say, let's do business as usual.
The war ended a generation ago. But for Bo Greitz, there will be no peace until those missing in action are returned to the home of the brave. And Albro Lundy will have a dad again.
I have no enmity against the Vietnamese. I have nothing but forgiveness. I mean, if my father is released, the first thing I'm going to say to the Vietnamese is thank you for keeping him alive for this long. Thank you very much that you didn't kill him.